Welcome back to the section. I'm glad you could join us today. Today we're going to be jumping right into part 2 of what to expect whenever you have your delivery based on our experience at the hospital. So we're going to jump right into that. If you haven't already seen part 1, make sure you go ahead and check that out. Also, while you're at it, go ahead and check out some of our other videos. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell, get those notifications, leave a comment, let us know how we're doing. Let's get started. Alright, so we're day 1 of postpartum. Just remember the baby has just been born. If you'd seen part 1, you'll know that's where we're leaving off. And the doctors just cleaned him off, wiped him down, and he gets him to cry. We all know that could be a nerve-wracking experience if it takes a while for him to cry, but thankfully he did get him to cry right away. The doctor goes ahead and cuts the circulation from his umbilical cord. That way he can call me over, and he asked me, "Hey Dad, do you want to go ahead and cut this cord for us?" And I said, "Sure." We're going to have a soapbox moment early on in this video. So basically, all you dads out there, all you spouses that get this opportunity to cut the cord, please make sure you take it. If you can stomach it, like we said in the last video, make sure you have the stomach of it before you do it. But it's an incredible experience. You're literally cutting the tether between mother and child. You're cutting that bond, and you're able to partake in that experience. So one thing I do have to say, if you do decide to do this, make sure that you're not expecting like a string being cut. It's not going to be an instant cut. They'll give you the scissors, and it's not going to be a quick snip. It's going to be kind of a saw-like motion with your cutting. You're cutting through actual tissue. So make sure that you can stomach that, and you don't have the expectation that's going to be one quick snip, because you do have to work your way through it. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and jump off this soapbox here for now. We're going to hit one later. Don't worry, I know y'all love these soapbox moments. So as soon as the cord was cut, the baby was placed on mama's chest. That way they could start doing their skin to skin. We did this for about an hour. A cool thing that I learned about skin to skin is that it actually helps with regulating the temperature for baby, because the body temperature that mom is giving off is actually going to the baby. That way they're both sharing the same body temperature, and baby can stay warm. Alright, spouses, make sure that if you are going to be the one that's dealing with taking pictures, this is your moment to shine. You want to make sure that you are familiar with the camera, the video camera, or the phone that you're going to be using. You want to make sure that you've practiced beforehand, because you want to make sure that you're giving your spouse, and you're giving, anybody that you want to show these pictures to, you're giving them the best quality pictures that you can, and as if they're there in the moment with you. So just make sure that you're prepared with whatever device you're going to be using. So after about an hour of skin to skin, they'll pull the baby off of mom, and I do suggest that you do go with them to be there for all of these upcoming tests and upcoming measurements that they're going to be doing. They'll take them over to the scale, and on that scale there's also a heat lamp attached. That way that the regulated body temperature is maintained through that heat lamp, so baby's going to be just fine. But what they're going to do is they're going to take his weight. Our baby was 5 pounds 10 ounces, and then they're going to measure him. What they do is they're going to put his head at the very edge of the table, and then they're going to stretch his feet out, and they bring this pedestal type of measuring peg, and that's how they're going to get the measurement of the baby. Our sweet baby, he was 19 inches. And then after that, they're going to take a tape measure, and they're actually going to wrap it around his head to get the circumference. After those measurements are complete, they're going to go ahead and they're going to draw some blood, because they have some other blood work and tests that they need to do. And then after that, they are going to do the first immunization that he's going to get, which in our case was the Hep B, hepatitis B. I don't know if that's across the board, across the United States, across wherever. We just know that we got the Hep B for our child. And finally, once all the tests were done, we were given diapers, formula, blankets, clothes, and a little hat for him, and his little bassinet that he was going to be sleeping in while we were at the hospital. And we were left so that we could do what we needed with our baby, and we could start getting into the swing of things as brand new parents. So we were super excited. All right, before they do leave for mom, what they do is they are going to take off all the monitors. They're going to remove the epidural from her back. This is removed by the nurse anesthetist. And just a side note that we actually didn't know beforehand, something maybe to prepare yourself for just in case, the epidural needle can actually break into multiple pieces while it's in your back. We got lucky, the doctor said, and it was able to come out in one piece. So keep that in mind whenever you're deciding whether or not you want the epidural and what the process might be to remove it. Alright guys, once again, I'm going to get on another soapbox. I know it was pretty fast, but this is really important. So this was a huge deal, because your baby has been born, and it's going to seem like, yes, it's all about the baby. But there's one crucial thing that you can't forget. It's not just about the baby, it's about mom and the journey that she's just gone through. You have to put a large emphasis on your spouse because they just went through hell pushing this baby out of them and bringing this child into the world. They just spent 8, 9, 10 months working for this child, and now they don't want to be just tossed aside. Okay, baby's here, you did your job, you can go wherever. No, you need to make sure that you are giving her the love, the attention, all the affection that she can have, and then make sure that you're actually talking to your family, your friends, that if they're going to come over or if they're going to call and all that, you want to make sure that they're also giving that emphasis to your spouse, because nobody wants, you to accomplish this major feat and then not get any credit for it. And it's not so much credit, it's, they just went through a whole bunch. Make sure that you're giving them the love and affection that they do need. So I'll go ahead and hop off that soapbox, as long as you make sure that you're keeping your spouse at the forefront of your mind along with your baby. Quick side note, baby normally on the first day after born, they will get their first bath, but due to some issues that we had with our night nurse, so that got put off till day 2 for us. And also make sure that if there is something that you're expecting or something that you want, that you do speak up. We wish that we would have, because we wanted him to have that bath that day, because there's a lot of stuff that he just went through and now he's got to sit in it for the whole day and the whole night. So make sure if there is something that you're expecting that you want, bring it up to your nurse, and if they give you different if they tell you something otherwise, then okay, that's great, but as long as you bring it up and you get what you want, that's awesome. Just remember that they are there for you and your baby. Okay, now we're on to day 2. Things are extremely routine. It was all routine through that first night, and it goes routine through the rest of your stay pretty much. Since we are formula feeding our baby, it's every 2 to 4 hours that we feed, so we're keeping on that constant schedule. And since he was in the first 24 hours, what they'll do is they'll prick his foot or his heel, and they'll take the blood to get a blood pressure reading, and they'll check that for the first 24 hours, make sure everything is going well. And then also at the same time, they're going to be checking his temperature just to make sure, once again, he's regulating body temperature and everything is going well. Since our baby was premature, he was 35 weeks and 2 days. He was on the Similac premature blend that the hospital provided for us. Thankfully, everything did turn out great. His lungs were fully developed, his heart, everything sounded great, looked great, had all his toes, all his fingers, everything was awesome with our baby. And so the hospital, they made sure that they took good care of us. They gave us the right formula blend that we needed. With that said, we also got 3 meals a day, which was really awesome, because not only are they taking care of the baby, they are also taking care of mom and dad. All right, so finally, sometime in the afternoon, our day nurse for the time, she was really awesome, really amazing, and she had asked how the first bath went, and we explained to her, yeah, we didn't get that. There were issues last night, and she seemed appalled that had happened, so she left the room immediately, grabbed all the bath supplies, and came back in and had the sink ready, and he got his first bath, so it was really cool. Don't expect a fully submersive bath, because they still have their umbilical cord, and that needs to stay dry so it can dry out all the way, break off, and heal properly. After the first bath was administered, the pediatrician actually came in, and he made the decision that he wanted to put our son on the UV lamp and UV blanket due to the fact that he is premature and the risk for jaundice was a little bit higher. His bilirubin levels were looking really well, and they weren't at a high risk factor, but the fact that he was premature, they weren't going to take any chances. So we were glad about that. It was really frustrating at first, just because, well, we'll get into why it was frustrating. Also, because he was a preemie, they wanted to keep him for 2 extra days on top of what we were already staying. That way they could do a blood test to make sure he doesn't have any kind of a blood infection, and they needed 48 hours in order to get the results back in a reasonable timeline. If the blood tests were to come back positive, that they said that they would have to transport us to a different hospital with a NICU. Unfortunately, ours didn't have that capability. But if he was positive, we'd go to that hospital with the NICU, which is about an hour and a half away, and he would be there for about 2 weeks or so. So that would have been really nerve-wracking, but thankfully we didn't have to worry about that at all. Cool, so after this, a number of things did happen. Like the lactation consultant did come in to talk to my wife about, what is our plan. Thankfully, they didn't push too hard about breastfeeding or formula. Whichever way you're leaning, it's okay, whichever way you want to go, as long as your baby is fed. That's the most important thing. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. You'll hear breast is best, or whatever you want to hear. Just know that as long as you're feeding your baby and they're growing and they're happy and they're healthy, you're doing the right thing. Don't let people chastise you for that. Anyway, so the lactation consultant came in and just asked my wife, what's our plan? We said we're doing formula, and they were perfectly fine with that, gave us some material to read, and they were on their way. After that, they came back in and they did some more blood work, more blood tests, just to see what his other levels were. I can't hardly remember what all these tests were for. It seemed like there were about 100 different tests that they were doing, but they were fast, they were swift, and they were efficient when it came to drawing the blood so that our baby boy was as comfortable as possible. And finally, they did do his audiogram on day 2. That way we could see what his hearing was at, if he was going to be hard of hearing or not. And so it was actually really cool. They had this device that they put on his head, and what they would do is that they would play the noise that would, that he's supposed to register to, and those sensors are what actually pick up his reaction, so they know that if he has a good reaction to it or not, and if what his hearing level is at. Make sure that if you want to be present for each of these tests, that you're there, because it's good to know what's going on with your child. We ended this day by reminiscing about the whole pregnancy, about what we had gone through, what she had gone through, and all the things that we had seen and done together. And then we had the task of figuring out how we're going to keep our little guy comfortable while he's underneath this UV lamp and UV blanket. So I don't want anybody to misinterpret what's going on with this upcoming story that I'm about to tell, but just know that my wife was exhausted, as she should be. She just gave birth, so she had every right to sleep, and being the good spouse, make sure that you are also being a good spouse and let them sleep. Don't make them stay up that whole first night if something comes up. If your baby sleeps through the whole night or sleeps till the next feeding, that's awesome. That just wasn't the case for us, so I went ahead, I took initiative, and I didn't want my wife to have to worry about getting up constantly. So we're gonna start the story about my fun night on night 2 with our baby. Okay, so we start the night out, and it's 1, 2, 3 in the morning. We're getting there. Wife's already fallen asleep. She's sleeping real good. But the baby, they have to put on this horrible mask that it's soft. Don't get me wrong, it's soft, but it covers their eyes, wraps around their whole head, and then they have to be underneath this lamp and a blanket that goes over them. And as you can imagine, it's going to be uncomfortable, and they're going to want to shake that mask off. So our poor baby, he was up the entire night, and I couldn't find a way to get him comfortable. So if you are doing this, then here's my advice to you, how you can stay up so that you don't lose your mind. It's pretty wild. So basically what I did, I'm not a big coffee drinker, I don't like the taste that much, but it keeps you awake, good energy. Through the next 7-9 hours, I had 2 cups of coffee. Push-ups and squats and any form of physical activity is going to be your best friend. It's going to keep that blood pumping. It's going to keep you awake. Whenever you feel yourself drifting and you want to make sure that you're up and ready so your spouse doesn't wake up, especially if she's a light sleeper, push-ups, physical activity, squats, whatever, that's going to be your best friend to stay awake. And finally, Russian death metal. I know how ridiculous that sounds, but I promise you, Russian death metal is the way to go, or any kind of death metal that's just going to be screaming in your ear the whole time. You're not going to fall asleep unless that's something you already listen to regularly. But those are the 3 tips that I want to give you to stay up whenever you're trying to stay up with your child that second night, if anything or any issue does come up. So remember, physical activity, coffee, and Russian death metal, or death metal in general. So the 7-9 hours pass, and our new day nurse comes in. Super awesome. She was a godsend no matter what anybody has to say. She was awesome. She actually had 12 years prior experience at a NICU, so she knew what she was doing with premature babies. She had 12 years experience with premature babies. So she came in, she saw how tired we were, and she said, okay, let me readjust this for you. She took his bassinet, lined it with blankets the way that she needed to, had him all folded nice and tight. And the second she was done, he slept like an angel. And I got some sleep, and it was really awesome. She did her job well. Cool, so his feeding was still routine, every 2 to 4 hours, nothing changed except for he's past the 24-hour period, is now in the 48, so there's no more pricking of his heel to get that blood sugar reading, which is awesome, because even though he got used to it, it still wasn't fun. He'd still, make the saddest faces, and you don't want to see your kid making terrible faces. But the only thing that did stay is because he is under the UV lamp and the UV blanket, they still had to take his temperature to make sure he's regulating everything that he needs to properly. So after our nurse had fixed everything and they checked his temperature after his feeding, the pediatrician came in once again, and we had the discussion of circumcision. Now this is once again totally your decision, Just like when it comes to formula or breastfeeding, don't let anybody tell you any different. If it's what you want for your child and what you want for your family, that's the thing for you. Do not let anybody tell you different, because I promise you this is your decision and not theirs to make. So we went ahead and got the circumcision. The pediatrician walked us through what's going to happen, the device that they use, and how they go ahead and do that, and to make sure that it's done in the safest manner possible. And the pediatrician also explained that whenever the circumcision is done, by the time it's healed, it'll be about the same time that the umbilical cord will fall off. So that's whenever you can do a submersive bath. Just know that you need to be looking out for infection, whether that's visually, you can see something's wrong, or the smell. The smell, you can usually smell an infection when it's getting bad enough. So keep an eye on those things. If that is the route that you want to do, your pediatrician's going to cover everything that you need. Our experience, make sure you're checking it, make sure you're cleaning it constantly, you're putting the ointment on it that they're having you put on it, and you're lining the diaper with that ointment also, so that it's not getting stuck to the diaper once it comes time to change. Keep in mind that the submersive bath will come. Just give it a week or two after everything's healed up and ready to go. And then we started moving into the final night that we were there. This is night 3 of the 3 that we were there. And so what actually happens on this day, the day before you leave, or depending on which way you go, but for us, night 3, they were going to administer the car seat test. And if you don't know what the car seat test is, it's where you do bring in your own car seat. That's because you do have to have a car seat whenever you leave, and they want to make sure that the car seat that you have works with the baby. But basically, the car seat test is where they have the baby sit in it for 90 minutes. They monitor his oxygen and make sure that he's going to be able to breathe and fit properly. That way he's not slouched enough to where he's blocking an airway or anything like that. This worked out nicely because they administered the car seat test, had the jaundice test, and also administered his feeding. So it took about 2 hours or so, and that gave us a solid 2 hours that we could sleep without worry. So if you do get this opportunity and that's something that you're comfortable with, letting your baby out of your sight for that long so that you can sleep, definitely take advantage of that. See if they can line that up for you, because any rest at this point is going to be awesome for you. So this concluded our night. Everything remained routine. He was still on that UV light, UV lamp. You still had to call the doctor in to check in the temperature during every feeding, every 2 to 4 hours. But that was the rest of our night. And now we're going to jump into our final day 4. So it only took about till the afternoon, and then we were finally discharged. They brought in the paperwork. They started unhooking mom from IVs, do everything that she didn't need anymore because we were getting discharged. We got the green light on all his tests. Everything looked awesome. Everything looked great. Our baby was ready to go home. He passed his car seat test, and he could get in the car and we can drive home. We got him all dressed up in his going home outfit, which was really cute, really awesome. That's going to be a moment where you're like, holy crap, we're actually bringing a baby home, especially if it's your first. You're going home where it's not just the 2 of you anymore, or not just the 5 of you if you have dogs. We had 3 dogs, so it's not just going to be the 5 of you anymore. You're actually bringing another human home with you. So big thing, do make sure that you're triple checking. You have all of your stuff. Everything is packed back into your bag. Nothing's left in the bathroom, under the bed, tucked away in covers and sheets, under the pillow, anything like that. Just make sure you do have all your stuff packed. I suggest triple checking. All right, dads, so when it comes to going and getting the car, make sure that you are taking the most direct route from the hospital room to the car. That way mom is, if she's walking, not having to walk all the way to the car, and if she's being wheeled out there, she's not having to sit down under the sun for that long. So just make sure you are taking the most direct route and you're parking in the most logical spot. Also, if it is summertime, go ahead and leave your car running, have the AC flowing. That way the car stays nice and cool. You can pull off your little key fob. That way you can lock the car up if you're concerned about that. If not, just leave the car on, leave it unlocked, leave the AC going. That way it stays nice and cool inside. That way baby doesn't overheat and mom doesn't overheat whenever they do get in the car. Same thing with winter. Make sure that heat is running, not too crazy because you don't want to overheat them once they get inside, but that way it's just comfortable enough so body temperature is still regulated for baby and mom's comfortable. All right, so after getting the vehicle, we got our stuff, we gathered it all up, and we walked outside with our nurse who walked us out, made sure everything was good, made sure that mom was good to walk, and they saw us off. So the drive home is gonna feel like an eternity, especially depending on how far you live away from the hospital. Thankfully, we only live 10 minutes away from ours, but that still took us what felt like, half an hour to actually get back home. Every little bump, every little everything just seemed like it was more apparent about what was happening. So just make sure you get home, stay calm, don't freak out or anything like that if you are anxious and your anxiety level is already going through the roof with a brand new baby in the car. Just make sure you're driving defensively and make sure that you're prepared, and just get home safe so that you and your spouse can enjoy your baby for the rest of y'all's lives. Alright, so that was part 2. I want to thank y'all again for watching. Please make sure you do like this video, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment below, let us know how we're doing. We love to hear what y'all are having to say. And please make sure you check out all of our other videos right here. Still figuring out these cards, but I'll see y'all next time.